Application Note 306, Creating a Button in SHIPTide. This is Terry West, and in this session we're going to do one of the things you're going to want to do probably first, is create a button within your GUI. And so we've got the project still open from Application Note 305 where we created a header, but you can do this from any project, including the minimal project, when you start up SHIPTide. And if you haven't reviewed the box model, Application Note 305, and Introduction to Pages 302, and a few of these other app notes, you should probably go back and look at those first. We assume you know something about boxes and frames and images attached and things like that here. But let's review. We need to create a button. Well, a button is not a widget per se in SHIP. In fact, we don't really have widgets. And that we consider that a plus because it's a lot more flexible in how we create objects that look unique and look brand appropriate. We don't want everybody's GUI to look the same. So you have a ton of flexibility on how to create a button. And a button doesn't even have to look like a button. It can look like lots of different things. But let's start with something very basic, like turning this logo into a button. So we've got this logo up here, and if I click on it and go inside this object, the header object, you can find this logo right there. And it's within the header and the page. And here we go. There's the frame that's got the logo. Now, it's a box, a box model type box. In this case, it's a frame. And I want to turn it into a button. Well, what is a button? A button is an area on the screen that you hit that does something, right? You press, and somehow you get a touch action. So we're going to start to introduce the concept of listeners within SHIP. And they're extraordinarily powerful and can do a lot of different things, but one of the simplest things they can do is listen to the touch controller. And they can listen and automatically filter things that are touching inside this box. So let's do something you haven't done before probably, which is create a listener. So in the frame that we want to create this touch listener, let's right-click and say Add New Listener. And here comes this little node under with a little satellite dish. It's listening. Now, you have to tell it what to listen to. In this case, we need to listen to the touch controller. And I'm going to type something here that looks a little opaque. touch0.event.e. And you can find these in the documentation area under your system. So if I go to the SHIP documentation zone, let's go to SHIP, and then underneath that you can look, or you can go to your display module directly, let's say SIM231, and within the display module, if you look under SHIP GUI development, right down here, you see this SIM231 Gui Reference Manual. If you go into the Gui Reference Manual and slide down, you will see a description of all the hardware ports and descriptions and names for all the things on the platform that you can access in your GUI. So for instance, there you can actually access the touch port. And there's one touch controller on the SIM231, so it's referenced as touch0, or more appropriately, platform.touch0, if you want to be very specific. And within that, there's something called an event, which has a data type touch, and you can click on the event, and you can see that an event it's a complex event of type touch, and it has some properties, event.e, which contains the touch up, down, or move, event code, X, which is the last X coordinate, Y, the last Y coordinate. So let's go back to our GUI, and what we want to do is listen to touch0.event.e, and we want to filter all those events, because we're going to get ups, downs, and moves. Anytime you get any of those changes, the listener is going to wake up. Let me say that again. We're listening to the touch controller, specifically to its event.e property, the event property. When something happens on the touch controller, the listener is going to wake up. When it wakes up, it can optionally filter that event with a condition. What I'm going to do is I'm going to filter it with a Boolean condition that says I'm only interested in touch downs. So I'm going to take that and say touch0.event.e equals touch.dn. A little bit of coding there, a Boolean expression. This resolves to true or false. It will resolve to true if the event that we're seeing is a touchdown. And if that event is true, we can run a script. So this is starting to get into the action event system within SHIP. And it's queued by a listener. So think of a listener as creating your own interrupt routine or your own event trigger. and it's going to be triggered whenever this listening to changes in any way. And then we can optionally filter it by this expression, kind of like an if statement. And then if that's true, we're going to add a script, add new script. It will run this script. Okay, we can do lots of things in scripts. And if you go to the website and you look under the sail language, so let's go back up and say the ship sail language right here. Sail is a built-in scripting language. It's very similar to C and Java. If you can program JavaScript, Java, C, any of those languages, you'll be able to pick up Sail very easily. It has a whole bunch of built-in functions that you're probably used to, like string functions and numeric functions like floor and float and round and all these kinds of things. It supports floating point and integers and strings. It's very similar to the languages that you'll have used already. And many Sail scripts can be done in 1 line, 2 lines of code. So think of the script here as an interrupt routine or as an event handler. You get in, you deal with the event, and you're done. Okay? So in this case, we've attached a touch listener with this listener inside this box, this frame, which has an image on it. Whenever you touch inside this box, you'll get a touch event. It automatically figures out that you're not touching in other boxes. If there's a box over top of this one and you're touching that one, it'll give the touch event to whoever's on top who has a listener. So in this case, we're going to get an event and we're going to run a script. Now we can do anything we want in this script. So if we, for instance, want to change the background color of this page to red the minute you touch down on that button, I can do that, and I can do it let's add the script. Now I can go over here in the property sheet and hit ... and here's the Sail editor. Or I can, here's a little tip, see where it says script there? Double click on the word script, and here's your editor. Now, the page up here, we didn't even give it a name. I'm going to call it psplash. I'm going to go back to my script. Oop, we already have a page named psplash, so we'll call this phome. Alright, so let's go into this script again. Here we are. I can say phome.bgcolor, background color, equals 0x, fully opaque, red, green, blue. So that's a standard alpha red, green, blue color combination. So I'm assigning the home page, this page named home, its background color to be red. And that's that script. That's it. I have now created a button that when I press it, the background color of this page will turn red. That's all I need to do. Now I can do all kinds of things. For instance, let's say I wanted to make this battery a button. I could take this listener that I just created. I can right-click, copy. Let's go find that battery. It's right here. Paste. My listener. I just turned that into a button. So now whenever I touch in this box, anywhere in this area, this script will run, and in this case, turn the background color, let's change it to, instead of red, so alpha, red, green, blue. Now it's going to turn the background color blue. If I touch the battery, it's going to make it blue, and if I touch the logo, it's going to make the background color red. Now that's obviously probably not what you want to do with your buttons, and maybe you want your buttons to shift to a different image, or do all kinds of different things. And there's a lot more sophistication around buttons, so there's a whole series of videos around buttons and touch events you're going to want to watch once you've got the basics down. And because there's all kinds of subtleties around what happens if I press down in the button and I release outside of the box. Well, if you look at this listener, I'm listening to touchEvent.e. That's only going to be delivered and wake this listener up if the event happens inside the box. So if I touch, for instance, on the logo, I am going to get a touchdown event. If I hold my finger down, slide it out of the box, and let go, I'm going to get a series of move events, which will be filtered out by this expression here. When I leave the edge of the box, this touch listener for this one here will stop getting touch0event.e's. Why? Because I'm no longer in the box. And in fact, because I don't have any listener at the page level or at its parent or anything like that, nobody's going to get that touch up. If I want to capture the touch up, obviously I could capture the touch up in this page. I could get rid of this condition right here. Now I'm going to get all the touch downs and touch ups still inside this frame. And if I go into my sales script, I can do something a little different. I can say if it's a touch down, make it red, else make it green. There. So now if it's a touch down, it's going to be red. Otherwise, when I release or move or anything else, it's going to make it green. Now that still doesn't solve the problem if I touch down in the box and I release outside the box. And again, we're getting into some more sophisticated levels of detail about how you want to handle touch events, down, up, move, and there's a whole series of videos on that, so we'll leave that for another application note.